Hi, this is Corey Johnston, and today's lesson is going to take place in the 4th chapter in the book of Proverbs. And Proverbs belongs to the category of Old Testament wisdom literature. It's expressions of wisdom. And the book of Proverbs is unique in the Old Testament, the majority of which is arranged according to narrative and has all the characteristics that entails, namely plot development and character development and interaction. None of that is in Proverbs. There's character references, but there's no protagonist or plot line or anything of that nature interacting. They are really only connected by the common platform, which they are, which is a proverb, which is a condensed saying of pithy wisdom. And we got a lot to cover here today, so we're just going to hop right into it. The opening verse reads, "Children, listen to the discipline of a father and give attention to know." So the divinely ordained means by which knowledge and wisdom and culture and civilization is passed on is from one generation to the next. So everything we create and everything we figure out and everything we know, we give to the next generation, or at least that's the way it's supposed to be. And we, as the younger of the generation, we have to listen and keep our ears open to accept all that the elder is offering. And we have to pay attention. The knowledge is not going to be instant. We have to give into studying it in order to know what it means. And that is, so give attention to know understanding. That's just something we need to do with it. "For I gave you good instruction. Do not forsake my Torah." His Torah is capitalized, so it would have been one and the same with Moses's, which was the governing body of laws governing the life of the ancient Jews. And so the king, as Solomon was, he is the author of this in the first 29 chapters of Proverbs. He would have been commanded to carry a portable Torah as outlined in Deuteronomy 17, and that was they were as bound by it as the citizen. Every citizen in Israel was bound by this covenant they had entered into, and it was the duty of the elder generation to pass the torch of that to the next. But this wasn't all. There was a lot of reasons why this never came to be, but individually we are to do what we can with what's right in front of us. So even if our society is collapsing, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't give the children the instruction that is godly. "For I was my father's son, tender and the only one in the eyes of my mother." So this is Solomon speaking of his youth, and he was the son of Bathsheba, the beautiful woman who had seduced David with his eyes, who in turn seduced her and impregnated her and ultimately arranged the murder of the real husband, the rightful husband, by placing him in a military predicament. And so one sin led to a chain reaction to the other. That's another story. I did one on that. You can type in Corey Johnston, 2 Samuel 11:25 through 12:14 or 16 or thereabouts. But that's who Solomon's son mother was, and his father was David, the king. "Then he taught me and said to me, let your heart hold fast my words, keep my commands and live." Now in Solomon's situation, the length of life was directly tied to his keeping of the commandments. And we do read that he died at age 59 because the fire on his heart, the Proverbs are believed to be written during the middle years of his life, eventually withered out, and he succumbed to idolatry in the end. But when he was visited by Yahweh himself at Shiloh, I believe it was, with a dream for anything he wanted, and because of the wisdom of his request, he asked for the wisdom to rule so great a people. That so pleased Yahweh that he also gave him 2 additional things, the things he didn't ask for: the death of his enemies and prosperity and worldly wealth. Get wisdom, get understanding, and do not forget, and do not turn away from the words of my mouth. Now, the Hebrew word get has a commercial connotation. That means to buy wisdom. And this is also used in passages such as Proverbs 23. Buy or get the wisdom and sell it not, and get understanding is right here. So wisdom and understanding. Understanding is foundational to wisdom. Wisdom is maybe the more advanced building block of knowledge that understanding, which is laid on top of knowledge, is. Then eventually that leads to wisdom. And the problem is that if we leave it alone, if we get distracted from remembering it, then we're not going to have any long-term benefit or value from it. So it does demand patience that we adhere to the truth, which leads on to life that we live by. Do not leave her, and let her guard you. Love her, and let her watch over you. So wisdom in understanding is likened to a female by the author. So he feminizes the form or essence of it to communicate to his son to treasure her as he would a woman. The apple of his eye, make wisdom the apple of his eye. So the overarching theme of this proverb, it can be argued, is the supremacy of wisdom, and this ties into wisdom literature. Remember what I told you before I began doing the verse by verse. And the beginning of wisdom is get wisdom, and with all you're getting, get understanding. Wisdom, like anything else, begins somewhere, so there comes a time when we have to desire the quest, and that is I think the philosopher Lao Tzu, not of our faith, but valid nonetheless, said every journey of 10,000 miles begins with a single step. So when we embrace the path of wisdom, we reach out, and it's a definable moment in time, and so that marks the beginning point of our getting wisdom, after which time we get more and more in our quest and pursuit thereof. Exalt her, and let her uplift you. She brings you esteem when you embrace her. So if we exalt the right things, we will be exalted by them. Wisdom is something to be exalted. It is something to be used in publicly and embraced in private and in public, and it will bring you esteem both in public and private. So wisdom is the one thing we can't get enough of it. We need it for every situation in our life. Every test of moral agency is a test of wisdom. Every problem which perplexes us is also a test of wisdom. So we literally can't do without wisdom. Wisdom is an essential ingredient for a spiritually enriching life. She gives you your head a wreath of esteem. She shields you with an adorning crown. So she knows how to treat you. That means you need to treat her properly and with respect. So she's generous and caring of you to give you be your crown or be your wreath. So you gotta reciprocate appropriately and in proportion. Hear, my son, and accept my words, and let the years of your life be many. Now the path of covenantal obedience leads to life of years, and it will also add years to your life. So there's a quantitative as well as qualitative life-building potential for walking the way we are called to walk. It will add quality to our life and make it longer as well. Of course, no two situations are exactly alike, but so we're never too young to need wisdom. Wisdom is not something that only comes to old people, and we should not be despised because of our youth when we bring it up and address it when we are surrounded by our elders, with all respect paid for their elder station. I have taught you in the way of wisdom. I have led you in the straight paths. So he's reminding him of his education and his inheritance. What he had given him as a father was an education which would have been perhaps unique amongst royals through many ancient civilizations. And the way that he had taught him was straight paths. When you walk, your steps shall not be hindered. If you run, you shall not stumble. So there's a balance when we maintain the balance in our worldly or physical walk. When we are spiritually balanced, we will have vision and guidance and the ingredients to get through and do what we need to do. And so that's what he's talking about. Hold fast to discipline. Do not let go. Watch over her, for she is your life. Now, discipline is necessary for all of us, how much more so royalty. So remember, he is instructing a prince with these words, and through him, us and posterity. But its immediate audience would have been his son, who did not. We have to pray that we can make more use of it than we did him. But don't let go to discipline. That means maintain it. Do not let your guard down, even when you've just done what you need to do. Be always thinking and mindful of what you need to do next, and then go do it. And do it with integrity and consistency, and discipline will develop into a constructive tool in your life. Do not enter the path of the wicked, and do not walk in the ways of the evildoers. So if the path of wisdom was the only one before us, then we'd all have no problems. We'd get through life smooth sailing. But unfortunately, the adversary is around us in all places and at all times with his snares and traps and deceptions. The world he is likened to as the ruler and the Elohim of the world. So if the Savior himself applies that title to another being, he really means it. So this world is pretty much under his control. And but more to the point of the passage, so he's the one who blinds us when we're walking in the divinity. By the same analogy is the light, which guides us and enables us to cross the path and make it to the finish line. But on that path, there's going to be clouds of darkness, which will be the adversary and his minions showing up uninvited and to pick a fight with us. But we should forsake, without even having to think about it, the path and the people who are wicked and evildoers. Avoid it. Do not pass by it. Turn away from it and pass on. Straightforward directions. No one can really argue with them. Don't even look at it. Do not indulge. Do not partake. Do not get curious about it. Do not think about it. Do not do it. For they do not sleep unless they have done evil, and their sleep is taken away unless they make someone fall. So sin has an addictive quality. It builds a rush in the sinner, who becomes an adrenaline junkie of sorts and needs to get more of it, so much so that they cannot sleep at night. They cannot function without doing more of it. It's their propeller and their momentum, and they got to keep it going. So they're going to be plotting all the time for their next move, their next score, their next dirty deed, and it's going to consume their days and ruin their sleep. And they're not going to be able to get to sleep and get the rest they need in order to have the rest that sabbatical covenant life can offer. For they have eaten the bread of wickedness, and they drink the wine of violence. As I earlier said, they were consumed by sin. Wickedness and violence are interchangeable with sin. So wickedness is identical in term, and violence is a specific species of sin, which is the outbreak of unnecessary force. But the path of the righteous is like the light of the dawn that shines ever brighter unto the perfect day. So we're children of light, and as such we shine it and we exude it and we reflect it. We don't radiate it. It comes from above, but it can shine in us if we are determined to walk the ways of wisdom and determined to walk the ways of obedience. We will function as a light, and others will see us, and we will become lighthouses in a dark, fallen, and perverse generation. The ways of the wicked is like darkness. They do not know at what they stumble. So then that's the setup for the juxtaposition, the antithetical juxtaposition. So he compares the path of the righteous to the way of the wicked, and that way is dark, and they are ignorant, and they are blind. So they're blind, and they can't even figure out at what they're stumbling. So they're blind and they're ignorant. That means they can't see. They're clouded by sin. They're not basking in wisdom or light or love or anything else. They're in enemy territory where they don't belong, and they should really get themselves out of there before it's too late. My son, listen to my words. Incline your ears to my saying. So he's saying once more that what he has to say, he's renewing his attention and the need thereof, because this is a lot to say and a lot to digest. And so that this is the 20th verse where he calls him to listen once more. Let them not depart from your ears. Guard them in the midst of your heart. The heart would have been the center of thinking, according to the ancients. I believe Aristotle thought the same thing. They didn't have the scientific knowledge to know that it was in the brain, but the heart is still symbolically accurate as the center of our thoughts and the motives and our intents. And so he's saying, even though these are words, he's saying, do not let them depart from your eyes. So I guess these are written words, hence the sense of hearing would have been activated by the spoken word, and the sense of sight is activated by the written word. For they are life to those who find them, and healing to all flesh. So there's a remedial quality to sin where ignorance induces injury. Sin heals and rejuvenates all flesh, and it gives life and gives life its second bout. It gives us second chances throughout the day. It gives us the power to move on and go forward. Watch over your heart with all diligence, for out of it are the sources of life. So he attributes a lot of significance to the heart. Remember, the ancients thought the heart was both the seat of the emotions and the center of one's thinking. And so that would have demanded close attention and diligent attention. And because the heart is an accurate barometer and indicator of what kind of character we are, and what kind of character we are is what kind of life we will live. So that is the source of our life. It is in the heart, and what we are outside of the heart is really shaped by the heart. Turn away from a crooked mouth and put perverse lips far from you. So the temptation, we're always surrounded by potty talk, potty mouth people who resort to profanity casually, even blasphemy, and don't think much of it, don't think of it at all. In fact, this is the world in which we live in, but we should not converse with such types, and we have nothing to gain by being surrounded by stupid, idiotic conversation. When we are on the path of wisdom, we have nothing to gain and nothing to give, really. Let your eyes look forward and your eyelids look straight before you. So he's asking him to use his eyes. Now these are matters of faith, so he'll have to walk by sight and by faith, 2 Corinthians 5:7. But always keep forward, be focused on the future. Let the past define you, but don't let it shape you, but don't define it. You're not imprisoned by your past. Many people who came to this path and became what they were led notorious and unsavory lives before they came to this path. So you are never disqualified at any time from coming to it. Consider the path of your feet, and all your ways are established. So we plot our next move and plan our own days, but if we do not submit the plan to Yahweh, there's no point in praying for him to bless it after the fact, because we have to consult with him. So this is an interesting overlap of providence and responsibility. We have to make the most, we are duty bound to make the most of his providential presence, by doing what we can when we are around him. And do not turn from the right or the left. Turn your foot away from evil. So when evil comes your way, don't step foot in it. Don't look at it. Don't do it. Don't be around it. Just get away from it. And there's no shame in fleeing from the temptations of the world. And that's all the time we have for today. That's the 4th chapter in the book of Proverbs. Not a whole lot of necessary context I had to give, but the context I hope revealed itself. But that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much. I'm glad you're here. Stay tuned till next time. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.